remember there was a piano in my grandparents' living room. It was a dark mahogany piano, and it had a matching bench. Belonged to my grandfather, who was a very interesting man. We would sit on that piano bench, and he would play games with me. His hands would flutter like a butterfly, but I knew that eventually one of those hands was going to dive into my belly, and he was going to tickle me. And I loved my grandfather, and I'm pretty sure he loved me. As a matter of fact, I'm very sure he loved me. We all lived in this two-story house on Cottage Street. My grandmother and grandfather lived downstairs. I guess I was kind of a favorite with the aunts, the uncles, and I was really a little prince, you know. And it was a great time to be a little prince. My grandfather was a kind of guy he was very frenetic. I understood that he didn't sleep very much. He was in the egg business, drink a lot of coffee, smoke a lot of cigarettes. And I remember 4 fingers and the finger next to him were brown with probably the thousands and thousands of cigarettes that he smoked, and they had stained his fingers brown. Rather than sleep, you could find him down at a local cafe that was open all night. And he would go to the movies. He loved stories, and he loved the movies, particularly movies about jungle adventures like Tarzan. And late at night, I'm sleeping in my little bed, and he would come into my room, and he would have 2 oranges. And together, he would wake me up and he would peel the oranges. Individually, he would peel off the little segments of the orange and he would feed them to me. And I can remember how that tasted, you know. And he would tell me the story about the movie that he just saw. And I loved my grandfather a lot. I always loved him. Some years later, when I was about 14 years old, I guess the smoking and the coffee sort of kicked in, and he developed emphysema, and he spent a lot of time in the hospital. I was pretty sad about that. And there came a time where he was in the hospital and he had pneumonia, I understood. And I was told that he was close to death. And I was frightened by death at that, in those days. And I guess I was frightened for my grandfather, that he was close to death, and I was afraid I'm not even sure what I was afraid of. But I didn't want to see him. I knew that I was too frightened to see him. And one day, shortly after that, he died. And my grandmother told me that the last thing he said before he died is, "Where is Martin?" Those words kind of stuck in my brain all these years. Some years later, when I was in art school and I used the cellar as a kind of a makeshift studio, I always loved to draw faces and heads. And this one particular night, I was drawing a face, and I was sure it was the face of my grandfather. He stared back at me, and somehow, inadvertently, he had come to life in this drawing that I had. And in retrospect, I was thinking that maybe that's why I draw all these faces. Maybe that's the reason that I'm trying to absolve the guilt that I felt about the grandfather that I loved and lost, and that I was too afraid to see when he most needed me.